Can you please take a seat? Would everybody please sit down and turn off your cell phones? Good evening and welcome to the Belmont Candidates Night, sponsored by the Belmont League of Women Voters. I'm Mary Ann Scally, president of the Belmont League. Oh, they'll be silent. The funding for this program is provided by the Voter Ed Fund of the Belmont League. For those who are watching on cable TV, it is now 7:30 on March 21st, 2019. Would everybody please be quiet? Thank you very much. The League of Belmont is a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The League of Women Voters of Belmont encourages informed and active participation in government. It takes action on a specific issue after we've studied it, but never do we support or oppose candidates. Information about the Belmont League can be found on our web, belmontlwv.org. The town election day this year is Tuesday, April 2nd. Polls are open from 7 to 8 p.m. The League of Women Voters is providing rides to the polls for this election. Please call 617-771-8500 or email rides@belmontlwv.org to request a ride. We'd like to thank the Belmont Media Center for televising this forum live and showing it between now and Election Day. And now at this time, I would like to introduce you to the moderator of the evening, who comes from Arlington, Patty Muldoon, from the Arlington League of Women Voters. So Patty, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Well, hello all. Hello, town meeting members, already so well lined up. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for attending and those who are watching at home. And of course, a special thank you to all the candidates who are running this year. So I'm happy to help the Belmont League conduct this Candidates Night. Once again, a reminder, please shut off your cell phones or silence them. Thanks. Before we get into the agenda, I would just like to mention that Representative Dave Rogers is in the room somewhere. We saw him. Oh, there he is. Great. And let's just quickly go over the agenda and procedure for tonight. As you can see, town meeting members are already lined up at the microphone. Please, each of you state your name, address, and precinct. Unfortunately, you won't be able to make any remarks to the community at large. I hope you had good conversations before coming in. After that, the uncontested candidates for townwide office will be coming up in ballot order to make statements and answer questions. They will come up here. And then we will have a little more time for your contested offices for school committee, housing authority, and board of selectmen. They will both make presentations, answer your questions, and make a closing statement in reverse ballot order. This year, Belmont has an uncontested seat for the one-year term of school committee. Michael Crowley, the only candidate, is unable to be here tonight due to a previously scheduled vacation. Therefore, we will only be hearing from the contested race for the three-year term for school committee tonight. And we'll get into more of the details of the procedures after the town meeting candidates. So just for all of you wonderful folks in the hall, we're going to be done by 9:45, and everybody needs to shoo out at least by 10. So, moving on to your wonderful town meeting candidates. Each candidate in precincts 1 through 8 will be coming up. Candidates, again, name, address, and precinct, and then just walk right on out. Please.
Precinct 1 starts here. Adriana Poole, 53 Louise Road.
Jocelyn Hayes, 5 Colonial Terrace, Precinct 1.
Emily Peterson, 22 Glendale Road, Precinct 1.
Mark Carthy, 21 Stone Road, Precinct 1.
Kristen Zecki, 30 Orchard Street, Precinct 1.
Alina Lasenki, 77 Bow Road, Precinct 1.
Alex Thurston, 101 Baker Street, Precinct 1.
Therese Hammerly, 22 Adams Street, Precinct 1.
Jennifer Ausrodas, 65 Richardson Road, Precinct 1.
Catherine Bodfilio, 84 Long Ave, Precinct 1.
Jessica Hausman, 11 Sharp Road, Precinct 1.
Chris Doyle, 15 Cedar Road, Precinct 1.
Hi, these are now candidates for Precinct 2. Hi, my name is Peter Magny, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2, 140 Radcliffe Road.
Cindy Papa, 109 Winter Street, Precinct 2.
Kathy Cohane, 19 Rutledge Road, Precinct 2.
Kelly Higgins, 11 Garfield Road, Precinct 2.
Michelle Mather, 26 Woodfall Road, Precinct 2.
Elizabeth Fallon Weintraub, 51 Prentice Lane, Precinct 2.
Elizabeth Harmer Dion, 55 Wellesley Road, Precinct 2.
Karen Varmaken Herosian, 585 Pleasant Street, Precinct 2.
Joseph DeStefano, 3 Sumner Lane, Precinct 2.
All right, and this is Precinct 3 starting. I'm Martin Plus, 10 Stanley Road in the Kendall Garden neighborhood.
Vera Iskandarian, 338 Waverly Street, Precinct 3.
Diane Miller, 80 Clark Street, Precinct 3.
Kelly Tomford, 72 Pinehurst Road, Precinct 3.
Lisa O'Terry, 31 Waverly Terrace, Precinct 3.
Jill Norton, 96 Clark Street, Precinct 3.
Ariane Goodman Belcati, 12 Woodland Street, Precinct 3.
Judith Ananian Sarno, 30 Waverly Terrace, Precinct 3.
Bob Sarno, 30 Waverly Terrace, Precinct 3.
Precinct 4 starts now. Sheila Flewelling, 36 Sycamore Street, Precinct 4.
Helen Bakeman, 92 Lexington Street, Precinct 4.
Sandra Okino, 18 Hull Street, Precinct 4.
David Flewellen, Sycamore Street, Precinct 4, 36.
John Okino, 18 Hall Street, Precinct 4.
Mike Chesson, 21 Whitcomb Street, Precinct 4.
Precinct 5 is starting now. Kristen Bell, 121 Slade Street.
Judy Fines, 71 Bay State Road.
John Pollock, 383 Common Street, Precinct 5.
Janice Ellard, 12 Horace Road, Precinct 5. Okay, thank you. Janice Ellard, 12 Horace Road, Precinct 5.
You can adjust the microphone so that you can be heard.
Mary Bradley, 12 Leslie Road, Precinct 5.
Precinct 6 starts now. Brian Saper, 16 Old Middlesex Road, Precinct 6.
April Edrington, 19 Elizabeth Road, Precinct 6.
Julie Wu, 66 Hillside Terrace, Precinct 6.
Steve Kleonsky, 196 Payson Road, Precinct 6.
Lauren Meyer, 39 Oak Avenue, Precinct 6.
Laurie Slapp, 95 Long Avenue, Precinct 6.
Virginia Jordan, 34 Lawndale Street, Precinct 6.
Catherine Oates, 82 Cushing Avenue, Precinct 6.
Roy Epstein, 34 Cushing Avenue, Precinct 6.
Catherine Poulin-Kirstein, 44 Townsend Road, Precinct 6.
Precinct 7 is starting. Natalie Kostich, 262 Grove Street, Precinct 7.
Michael McNamara, 41 Marlborough Street, Precinct 7.
Paul Nelson, Unity Ave, Precinct 7.
Precinct 8 is starting. I'm Roger Reed, 62 Monroe Street, Precinct 8.
Ann Rittenberg, 42 Farnham Street, Precinct 8.
Kathleen Fitzy Cowing, 278 Cross Street, Precinct 8.
Jie Yun Huang, 1 Street, Precinct 8.
Paul Richter, 119 Cross Street, Precinct 8.
Radha Heinga, 76 Dean Street, Precinct 8.
Catherine Dilawari, 55 Monroe Street, Precinct 8.
Brian Caputo, 75 Oliver Road, Precinct 8.
Paul Roberts, 54 Cross Street, Precinct 8.
Anne-Marie Lambert, 79 Chilton Street, Precinct 8.
Mark Palillo, 42 Pilgrim Road, Precinct 8.
Thank you so much. I would now like to invite the candidates for the uncontested races to come up. While they're coming up, can we give all these civic-minded candidates of yours a hand? And while the candidates for our uncontested races are coming up, I'll just explain how we're going to flow through the evening. Each of them will be called to the podium in ballot order. The candidates will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement at the podium. The audience will then have the opportunity to ask questions of the candidates, and these are questions, not statements. They will be brief, audience. And the league may also have some questions for the candidates, which I've already got. So the candidates will have 1 minute to answer these questions. And of course, there's no requirement to use up your whole minute. Meanwhile, down in front, we have Lisa Hughes, Amy Grossman, and Sarah Caputo as our timekeepers tonight. Could you just raise your hands? All right, timekeepers. The timekeepers will hold up a yellow 30-second remaining card. This is for all candidates, and then a red stop card as necessary. And so I invite you that when you see that your time is up, please finish your sentence and stop. After the candidates have finished your sentence and your statement, audience members who wish to ask a question should line up in the mics in either aisle. And once again, the timers will hold up warning signs for 30 seconds. So we will begin with our uncontested candidates in ballot order, beginning with the moderator, Michael Widmer, and you have, we'll probably just have a couple of questions for each candidate. Thanks.
Good evening. Thank you to the League for hosting this event. I'm honored to have served as town moderator since 2008, and I thank the voters for their continued confidence in me. During this time, I've made it a priority to build a productive town meeting which serves the interests of all citizens of Belmont. I have worked hard with others to ensure that town meeting members receive adequate information in advance, that the presentations on articles are focused and informative, and that there be broad and respectful discussion of important issues by our elected representatives. My other major responsibility is to appoint members of various committees, including the Warrant Committee and Building Committees. The work of the 3 current building committees will change the face of Belmont for decades to come. I want to salute the chairs of those hardworking committees, Bill Lavallo for the high school, Anne Marie Mahoney for the DPW and Police, and Claire Colburn for the Library. We are exceedingly fortunate to have volunteer leaders and committee members with such dedication and exceptional talent. Over my years as moderator, I have always been open to new ideas and have encouraged input from often contrasting points of view. Because I have such tremendous respect for the thriving democratic processes of our town meeting, I am committed to ensuring that we continue to have healthy discussion of different points of view, but in the end, joining together around a common purpose for the well-being of generations to come. Thank you again for your confidence in me.
So, do we have questions? I see one question walking up. Oh, no, not a question walking up. She was just walking. I will ask a question then, and if you'll just stay put, I'll ask from here. Since electronic voting makes it quick and easy to keep a record of how each town meeting member votes on each motion, what is your position on recording the votes of individuals on all motions?
Well, clearly, we have available through our bylaws the opportunity for recorded votes. It takes only 35 town meeting members to achieve that, which is a small fraction of the total town meeting body. So it's already available. I think doing it for all votes is unnecessary. I mean, as you town meeting members know, there's a lot of routine business that we just go through quickly. And it would be unnecessary and I think counterproductive to have essentially roll call votes for those matters.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience.
Paul Roberts, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. First of all, thank you, Michael, for your years of service and for the wonderful job you've done as moderator. My question would be, we've seen recently with the planning board where we had some turmoil on the planning board, and then we had a number of people, good response from the public in terms of people throwing their hat in the ring to be appointed to planning board. But often with vacancies on boards, we don't have a tremendous number of volunteers. So I guess my question to you would be, do you have some ideas on how to get word out about committee vacancies and get a broader range of people from the community throwing their hat into the ring and saying, I'm willing to volunteer?
Sure. Well, of course, many of the boards are appointed by the board. I mean, committees are appointed by the Board of Selectmen. My sense is that there's been a renewed effort in the last year or two to reach out and identify more opportunities for a diverse set of people to participate in the boards. In my case, what I've tried to do for the committees that I appoint, let's say the Warrant Committee, is identify people who have had some experience in town but are still not yet widely known and involved. So we had the committee on whether we would, that I appointed, on whether we as a town would go from 3 to 5 selectmen. And on that committee, eventually, when they finished their work a year ago, I selected 3 people from that committee to appoint to the Warrant Committee. So I'm trying to identify younger people and broaden the pool of people who get involved.
Thank you. Well timed. And we have one more question.
Hi. It's great to see you again, Michael. Michael McNamara, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 7. I was sort of wondering, I know there are a lot of people who can't make it to this meeting tonight because they have family or kids. So that's actually why I wanted to ask you about the automatic voting, or sort of the recording all our votes, because I feel like that would be helpful so that we could have it prominently displayed so people could just look on the website and see, hey, look, this is the vote. So I'm sort of wondering, is there some way you could try and make it more accessible to people who don't always follow the meetings or don't have the local access channel available to them? That's just what I'm wondering if you...
Well, as I said, I think we have the opportunity today, and with electronic voting, you can do this roll call vote, which then records your votes. That's easy. When it previously was not easy. It was time-consuming, laborious. You had to read the names of 288 town meeting members. Now, with our electronic voting, after we vote on an issue, it just takes one town meeting member to call for a roll call, 34 others to agree, and then we have the record. And I think it's appropriate to have a handful of those issues, the ones that are critical and maybe contentious, have roll call votes for that. But I don't think it's necessary, as I said earlier, for a whole host of routine matters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now for your town clerk, Eileen O'Brien Cushman, please. Ellen, sorry. That's fine. Please don't. It's fine. Thank you. Good evening. Hi, I'm Ellen O'Brien Cushman. I'm running for re-election for town clerk. I have to tell you, I love being Belmont's elected town clerk. It's been fun. For 9 years, me and 3 people on my staff, we have gotten to know so many Belmont people who come through our doors thinking that the town clerk's office is sort of the front door to figure out how to deal with the town. And we appreciate that, because we think it's a vote of confidence. We have people coming through the doors, whether they're residents or just general members of the public, who are interested in vital records, elections, voting, dog licensing, business licensing, committee work, town meeting work. The list goes on and on. It's pretty long and varied. Last year alone, in 2018, we welcomed 19,000 visitors to the town clerk's office. Given that the town's population is 25,000, that's pretty good, we think. No wonder we're a little tired. We work hard, long hours, we have a good time of it. But that tells us a lot. We do count. In addition to that, we did about 40,000, a little more than 40,000 emails. We sent them and we received them. So people have figured out how to reach us, and we really do hope that that means there's a vote of confidence. I would tell you that I've lived here forever, and one of the things I always knew growing up is that Belmont is a small town, a friendly small town. And lately there's been a bit of rancor, whether it's about elections or points of view that people don't necessarily share. And that makes me kind of unhappy, and I know a lot of people are unsettled about that. So I'd rather, instead of the rancor, I'll offer just a suggestion, since I have the bully pulpit tonight. And I'll tell you, I think, if you see someone on the street, why not just smile and say hello, and realize that that person is your neighbor today, and after whatever election or whatever issue goes by, we're going to be neighbors tomorrow too. So let's try to make the most of it. Thank you, and I appreciate your vote. Seeing no one quite yet walking up. There's someone over. Oh, we got to vote. Okay, please ask.
Here I am, Suzanne Robotham, Precinct 2. Ellen, getting back to the electronic voting, sometimes we use electronic voting when no one has called for a roll call vote, just as a matter of convenience. Are those votes also being recorded and kept on file?
So thanks, Suzanne, for the question. I actually was leaping when Mike was being asked some of these questions earlier as well. So electronic voting is entirely up to the moderator. And when he or she chooses to use it, that's when it will be used. And it's up to the population of town meeting, as you know, and as Mike explained, to have 35 people say they agree that we should have a roll call which captures every single result of every vote. So on the aggregate vote, which is what we call it, when the numbers just appear and then 35 town meeting members have not requested a roll call vote, then those pieces of metadata are not captured.
Thanks so much.
So those are not accessible. To follow up, since I have 15 more seconds, people who are interested in the full record of the town meeting votes, I think Mr. Roberts asked this earlier, those are embedded in the annual reports as part of the town meeting record, but it certainly seems to make sense. People might be interested in having us do that in a really timely way, so we'll look at doing that onto the website right away during the middle of town meeting. It sounds like that's what people want. Thank you. You've been using the CPA funds to digitize historical records. How has this helped the citizens of Belmont, and how can they most easily access these records?
So, thank you. Good question. So we do have several projects to digitize our records going back to 1859. There are two kind of notable projects. One is all of our vital records back. Anybody in the room doing genealogy research for their grandparents, great-grandparents, whoever. In any given year, we have thousands of people who come in looking for their birth certificates, death certificates of relatives, marriage certificates of themselves or long-lost relatives, or if you are right now trying to get a real ID, that's how you will get it. So those are accessible at this moment through a data system that is accessible only to the town clerk staff. It is not generally something we're putting out like on Ancestry because the state does not allow that. Annual town reports and town transcripts of town meetings, those are currently being indexed now, and then we will be rolling them out so they will be available via the town's website over the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Klaus Becker, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 5. First, I want to commend you. I think your office and the people in it, including yourself, are really helpful.
Thank you. I think they are as well.
It's a pleasure interacting with you. I find the website frustrating. Is that your responsibility?
It is not.
Okay.
But we, but we deal with it too, and we understand some of the complaints. But I would tell anybody who has issues about the website, send them. I know the Selectmen's office is going to hate me. Send it to selectmen@belmont-ma.gov, your suggestions.
Okay.
And hopefully it will improve.
Thank you.
Sure.
We have one more? No. Okay. Thank you so very much.
Thank you all.
And now for Board of Assessors, Charles R. Laverty III.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters. I just want to ask you, next time I don't want to follow Ellen. She's a tough act to follow. But again, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. And without fail, this is the 5th time I've run townwide for a townwide office. And without fail, this is always scheduled on a day I'm coming back from town from vacation. So 3 years ago, I got up here and I proceeded to forget my whole speech going from the airport to here. And so after speaking, I said, frankly, I really blew it. And he goes, I wouldn't worry about it. He goes, you're sunburned? People were looking at you glowing. I don't think they heard a word you said. But the 3 things I want to cover real quickly that the Board of Assessors keep hearing is why isn't there a split tax rate, commercial and residential? That's because we don't have a commercial tax base to shift the burden to. Why isn't there a residential exemption? Same thing. There's not enough to make that classification. Every year in early December, we meet the Board of Selectmen. We have a public hearing. We go over that. So there's a lot of input, and every year we do review that. And then the other thing we hear with the recent overrides and the debt exclusions, we are hearing that the seniors are feeling a tough burden that the taxes are starting to affect them on a fixed income. So we did the senior tax exemption in the fall town meeting. And again, if you have any questions about abatements, stuff like that, our office is always willing to help everyone. So we look forward to you guys coming in and answering your questions.
And as I'm looking around for questions, it's again coming to the leagues. How often does a house in Belmont get reassessed? And is that often enough given the hot housing market?
Yeah, so the Department of Revenue, Massachusetts Department of Revenue sets strong standards that every house has to be examined. So in Belmont, that's basically on a 3 to 4 year cycle. So we come in, we take a look, and we're not looking for any hidden bathrooms or hidden attic spaces. We want everyone to pay their fair share of the taxes. And as we say at the Board of Assessors, we try to treat everyone fairly. You know, not, every house in Belmont's a little bit different, but we want people to pay their fair share of the taxes, no more, no less than what they deserve to pay.
So yes, that's often enough.
Yeah, often enough. Yeah, again, 3 to 4 years, and the state guidelines are much longer than that. We do it better than what the state asks us to do. So that's the answer.
How much did Royal Belmont add to the tax base and Belmont's tax revenues?
So that will come under new growth, and with Royal Belmont and Cushing Village and some of the projects, they haven't been come to fruition as early as we would like to. So in the new growth proposals, we'll be coming out with those new projections in the spring. We gave the Board of Selectmen and the Warren Committee the figures from last year, right before the end of the fiscal year. So when we get through abatement season, we'll be giving those to the Warren Committee, and we'll be giving those figures to Patrice, the Town Administrator, and the Board of Selectmen. We'll have a public hearing to go over the new growth figures, again, not for just Royal Belmont, for Cushing Village and any of the other projects to come in.
Thank you. That's all the questions we have. Thanks. And for the Board of Cemetery Commissioners, William Camelli. Did I pronounce that?
You did.
Ooh. Yay. Thank you.
As I used to tell them in school, chemical is CHEM, not chemical. Very, very good. To League of Women Voters, thank you very much for having this tonight. And to your President, Mary Ann Skelly, and I spoke to you earlier, and I'm sure that I extend the thoughts of everybody here tonight. We're sorry for your loss of your husband. He will surely be missed at the town meetings. Thank you very much. As you know, that the Board of Commissioners of the cemetery work hand in hand with the Department of Public Works. It's the DPW that does most of all the maintenance at the cemeteries and does a great job there. And I'm sure that you're all familiar with the Highland and the one on Grove Street, Belmont. It is indeed a pleasure to be at those cemeteries and work what we do. We will continue to maintain them as best we can in a perpetual care program that is derived from the sale of the cemetery lots. There's a percentage of that rate goes into perpetual care. For most of you, I know that when the loss of a family member is a really rough time. For those of you who have never been through it, I'll tell you how I've gotten through it. I got through it in 2005 with the loss of my daughter. It's not an easy thing. You need somebody nearby who understands what's going on. I understand that. Sympathy is a great thing to have around, to help people along, and it is a thing that it just never goes away. People will make comments. It will pass. Nothing passes. It stays with you forever. And her children were 7 and 8 years of age, so we really did have a tough time at the time, but they've grown up now. As you can see, I'm wearing my granddaughter's jacket from Stonehill College, and my grandson is working for his father, but it's a pleasure to be here, and I thank you very much.
So we'd like... What percentage of plots are still available for sale, and do you feel that Belmont will need an additional cemetery in this century?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure that I know what percentage of plots are available. That's something you would have to find out if we went to the office and looked it up. To the program director would tell us that we don't keep track of that as a commissioner. That is done by the office manager who keeps track of that. And for this century, you know, I would hope that we'd never need a cemetery, that we could all live in perpetuity forever. But that's not the answer. The answer is, yeah, I would envision that someday we'll have to extend it, but how we're going to do it, I have no clue. Thank you.
So do you feel that Belmont is running out of space?
Not at this time, no, not at this time.
Okay. And do you plan to open a new section of the Highland Cemetery, and if so, when?
Now you say, do you? It's not myself that does that. There's the board of 3 members. We'll have to have a meeting if we're going to do that, and we'll discuss it. But it is not my decision to be made by myself. It's a board decision, and that's how that'll be handled.
Does the board plan to open?
Not to my knowledge.
No. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No question. Thank you very much.
And for the library, oh, no, Board of Health. Board of Health is not able to attend tonight. That would be Julie C. LeMay. So yes, we are going on to library, right? Okay. So for trustees of the public library, we're going to ask those candidates to come up and take questions. And we may do this a little differently. Make your speech and then come sit there. We've got 2 people, so we may do this a little differently. Come up, make your speech, sit down. Come up, make your speech, then sit down, and we'll ask your questions from there, okay? Is that all right? We just deal with logistics. So you can, we'll ask questions after both of you have made your opening remarks. And so be prepared, folks, to come up with your questions. And this holds true for the whole evening. Any question you ask of one candidate needs to be able to be asked to the other. So using random.org to pick numbers in advance, Mary Stearns will go first.
Good evening. I'm Mary Stearns, and I'm running for re-election to the Board of Library Trustees. I want to say that the Belmont Public Library is a very busy place. It now ranks 11th as the 11th busiest library in the state. And on average, more than 900 people a day come through its doors. Good things are happening at the library, and people are noticing. During my campaign, I heard many compliments about the helpfulness of the library director and the staff. I also heard many positive comments about the library's brighter physical interior. The staff have made very prudent efforts to refresh our current building with paint, carpeting, improved lighting. However, these improvements are Band-Aids. The original systems, the HVAC, the electrical, the plumbing, the roof, all need constant repair. And also, the library is not accessible to everyone in town. It is not ADA compliant. But the good news is that there are efforts underway to get a new library building. The feasibility study was completed and determined that the best option for this town is a new building on the current site. The town meeting authorized the establishment of a building committee, and this committee has selected an architect to develop the design for a new library. Last week, the architect held the first of 3 public meetings to obtain community input to ensure that this eventual design will meet Belmont's needs. But to get this library, there must be private as well as public support. I'm through. Okay.
Mark McCarthy. Mark P. Carthy.
I'm Mark Carthy, candidate for re-election for library trustee. And similarly to Mary, I would like to cover some of the issues there are with the current building and also some changes that have been made over the last 4 years. So as one of the issues that I feel very strongly about is the children's room. And we are the 12th most used children's room in a library in Massachusetts. We're about 1/3 of the size that we really should be for the population that we have. And if anyone's visited there when there's a children's program, it's just bedlam. There's so many people want to go to the programs. You sign up, you can't even get in. So it's become very difficult. The same children bubble that we're seeing in the schools is coming through the library. In terms of the changes that have been made over the last 4 years, with the limited budget that we have had a lot of carpet and paint, as Mary mentioned, but we've been also able to update our website, have a new interactive logo, a new branding effort, reinvigorated collections. If anyone has visited the hallway of the library, we've constantly refreshed what's on offer to show people what is in the library. We've redone parts of the children's room, the east and west wings. Just tonight we were meeting about redoing the teen room, which is an important group in town that we haven't really addressed. We've also turned out a lot of new partnerships across town. I think in the past the library had been a bit of a silo, and we've partnered with the veterans, We've partnered with a lot more with the town itself, the town office, where we've been a lot more cooperative on both sides. I think before we were running, for example, our own maintenance, and now we've cooperated with the maintenance group in the town, and I think we've ended up getting better service. So all in all, I think that the library has been refreshed with the assets that we have, but we would like to move on to a new library in the future. Thank you.
So I already heard something about maintenance. Asking both of you, starting with Mr. Carthy, given that your new library is several years in the future, what do you see as the most pressing major maintenance needs for the current building?
So as I said, we just had our meeting tonight, and we heard that the AC unit on the roof of half of the building is completely out, and we're going to need a new AC unit before the summer starts. So I think that's just an example of major systems in the building are failing, and we have to replace them.
Yeah, I endorse what Mr. Carthy said, and it seems to be almost at every trustees meeting we discuss one of these failing systems. So they're doing their best to keep the library going and keep it as attractive as possible, but it's a patchwork operation at this point.
Thank you. And reversing order, starting back with you, Ms. Stearns. Setting aside the issue of maintenance and the new library building, what are your two top priorities?
My two top priorities are to maintain this upward trend in terms of the usage of the library. We get the statistics reported every meeting, every month, and it's quite striking how intensively the library's used. And of course, the second part of that is that we have to maintain the services at that level. To do that, the other thing that we're doing as another priority is to make sure we are making most effective use of our staff, and we are reviewing a lot of aspects of how the staff is assigned and making effective use of their time.
I would endorse what Mary was saying. Staffing it's actually quite complicated when you're a trustee and you go through we have some new people joining, we have some old people retiring, there are rules, there are unions, and so there's a lot of difficulty in being able to spread staff across the facility in the most efficient manner possible, given all the rules that we have to deal with. And so I think that is an issue that the trustees spend a lot of time on.
Thank you.
Michael McNamara, 41 Marlborough Street, Precinct 7. I was going to ask, I know you'd focused a little bit on the sort of the younger kids, and we're trying to work on the sort of getting more of the teens into the library. And I was sort of curious, can you expand on that? Because a lot of people my age are using iPhones, iPods, everything's digital. So I'm sort of wondering if you could speak a little bit about how you're trying to get them into a building that maybe most of them are like, well, we use it for school, but, you know.
The library today is not just books. There are many electronic resources. There are many different types of formats, even of what we might call books. I'm not up to date on all of them. So, and we see the usage, the teens are coming, so we're providing them with the information and the technologies that they need. And it might be of interest in a more general sense that the librarians are a wonderful technology resource for the community. And if you go on the website, you can see that you can book time to have a session with one of the technology librarians.
One of my big things is that the library is a democratic access to books and technology for everyone. And there are many people who don't have, expensive computers, internet, iPhones. And it's very important that we provide everybody with that level of service from not only from a civics point of view, but also from just a plain educational point of view.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you all to our uncontested race candidates. I'd like to invite you to come down, and we will next take up the school committee. Thank you. So, school committee candidates. We have water for any of the candidates that want it, just to mention. So there are 3 candidates for the 2 3-year school committee positions, and 1 candidate for the one-year position. Unfortunately, Michael Crowley is on vacation this week on a trip that was scheduled months ago, so he's not able to be with us. So we will just be debating the 3-year position tonight. We have with us Amy Checkaway, Peter Pantazopoulos, Andrea Prestwich. And we've, again, used random.org to pick numbers in advance to decide the order of presentation. Peter Pantazopoulos will go first.
Oh. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight, and thank you for the League of Women's Voters for having us. I just wanted.
Can we hear?
Oh, can you hear?
A little closer to the mic.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Closer to you. There you go.
Okay. My name is Peter Pantazopoulos, and I'm running for school committee. I've been a Belmont resident for the last 19 years with my wife Olga, and I have 2 children, Elias, who's 5, and Evan, who is 1. And as they're starting to enter the Belmont public school system, I have been getting involved with a lot of school issues, such as the new school being built, special education, student fees, busing issue, and I've been talking to a lot of other concerned parents and who have similar issues, and I decided instead of talking about it, I should donate my time and get involved and help solve some of these issues. My background, I have a bachelor's degree in business accounting, I have an executive master's degree in business finance, and I have a master's degree in computer science. And I also have 20 years of consulting experience, mainly in finance, and I'm a global portfolio manager where I manage a team of diverse Indian and U.S. employees who implement financial systems. I'm hoping to use that experience to help work with a lot of students. I currently help students, I'm on a number of boards. I'm on the Minority Supplier Development Council. I'm on the Women's Entrepreneurial Supplier Council, and I'm also on the Gay and Lesbian Business Development Council. So I'm on a lot of diversity boards, and I help students understand the value of having a good education and being an entrepreneurial person. So I'm hoping to use these experiences and help solve some of these business issues that we have today.
Thank you. And Amy Checkaway, please.
Hi, I'm Amy Checkaway, and I wanted to also thank the League of Women Voters for gathering us tonight and bringing us together, because I think it's really important that everyone in the community hear the perspectives of those who will be on the ballot on April 2nd. So a little bit about myself. We moved to Belmont in 2012 with my amazing partner, Matt, and my 2 children. I have 2 boys, one of whom is in 3rd grade and one is in 6th grade, who are right in the middle of their public school careers. Since my oldest child started kindergarten, I've been really involved in our local schools and probably spent hundreds of hours volunteering, particularly at the elementary school, in a variety of leadership roles. And through those experiences, which include starting a new program to help families who move to the district mid-year, another program that helps support families who move from other countries and matches them with a mentor family within the school. I've served on the school after-school program board for 5 years now, and participated in various other committees, including one of the principal search committees at Wellington. I think a lot about education in my professional life as well as my personal life, and for the past 20 years I've worked in the education policy space, starting out working for a national advocacy organization, and then moving to doing education policy research and consulting for a firm in Cambridge that does both federal program evaluation as in the education and early childhood space, as well as consulting and strategic advising. So I spend my days working with state leaders, and I really hope to bring these skills to contribute in our community to a lot of important issues ahead.
Thank you. And Andrea Prestwich, please.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to the folks at home for watching. When I was first elected to the school committee, my top priorities were to solve problems associated with spiraling enrollment and to have Chenery and Belmont High School students start later so that students can get the sleep that they need. I'm pleased that we've made progress on both of these issues. The new 7 through 12 high school will solve the space problems for the foreseeable future, and classes at the high school will start a half hour later in the fall. This is a great start. I'm running for a second term because I feel I have unfinished business. The new high school will need very careful oversight in the next few years. And when students walk into that lovely new building, I want them to do so at a time that is consistent with the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations. Most importantly, and this is my top priority, I want to maintain excellence in Belmont schools. This means continuing to fund the schools at least the current level. I understand that funding for the schools comes directly from hard-working Belmont residents. And I'm incredibly grateful to the town for the support given to the schools over the past few years. Nevertheless, Belmont schools are funded per student below the state average. Cutting the per student expenditure would seriously impact core academics. I have other priorities I don't have time to discuss, including access to after-school care, appropriate education for all learning styles, including vocational education, a welcoming school culture, and a school system that is environmentally responsible. Please see my website, Andrea for Belmont Schools, for details, and thank you for your attention.
And if you'll stick with the mic. Thank you. I want to invite people to come up with questions. I see a question coming up right now.
Hi. I have a second grade boy who, if he could decide how to spend his, whoops, I can talk loudly.
No, we're filming.
Okay. So I have a second grade boy, 8.5 years old, who if he could choose how to spend his day, he would spend almost all of it at either Habitat or Joey's Park or on a bicycle. However, as a second grade boy in public school, he spends 2 15-minute periods of recess, except when he's in after school, at which point he gets about an hour outside.
Could I ask you to identify yourself and just come to the question? We don't have time for long, involved questions.
I'm sorry. My name is Melissa McIntyre, and I live in Precinct 8. So I'm curious to know what the position is, and I don't know if I'm even asking the right people, but what the position is of the committee on increasing access to outdoor playtime for younger children, especially.
Thank you. And Ms. Prestwich, would you start?
I think the short answer to that is yes. Everything I have ever heard and read over the past few years suggests that access to outdoor time and plenty of playtime is incredibly important for younger students. And I would support the administration in any moves in that direction, especially for the younger students. Thank you.
Mr. Pantazopoulos?
Yes, to answer the question, I would have to look at the policy for each school and for each classroom and what the standardized is for that grade level. And obviously, yes, more time outside is something I do agree that we would look for.
Let's check away.
I know my boy's favorite subject is recess, so I've heard this in terms of a suggestion straight from them as well. I know that our district and our teachers are under a lot of demands in terms of what they need to cover during the day, and there are sort of restrictions to the amount of time that they are able to spend at recess. I do think it would be important, and I would fully support a focus on trying to take advantage of the outdoor space right outside the building to conduct some educational activities outside of the classroom. I think there are sufficient spaces, and there's a lot to be learned even from the areas right around school. So to the extent that teachers can think a little bit more broadly and bring their students outside to have a class, I think it would help them and help them be able to focus as well.
On this side and then on this side.
Hi there, Laura Caputo. I'm in Precinct 8. Andrea touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to hear from each of the candidates if you're familiar with the science about starting school later and the benefits of that for adolescents in particular, and whether you would, if elected, would work to make sure that the new 7 to 12 school had a 8:30 or later start time.
Thank you. Ms. Prestwich.
I'm very familiar with that science. And yes, I do think it's incredibly important that our students get the sleep that they need. I think the American Academy of Pediatrics, Centers for Disease Control, and just about every other medical organization in the country recommend that schools start no later than 8:30. And I think as we move forward into the new grade configuration, that should be a top priority when it comes to setting times.
Ms.
Thank you.
Checkaway.
Yeah, I'm very aware as well of the compelling research on the positive effects, particularly for adolescents, probably grade 7 and higher, of starting school at 8:30. And I think that many districts are moving in this direction, including a lot of our neighboring and peer districts. So I'm excited that we are trying this out in the high school next year and giving students there the opportunity to go half an hour later. And I think this is an important direction that we continue to move in. It's important also to take the time we need to plan for it, but I'm very supportive of moving in that direction. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Pantazopoulos.
Yes, I'm also aware of the times and the downstream effects of those times. I know there's studies that have been done that says the high school kids should start later. But I also want to, if I was elected, I'd like to look at the busing schedule, because that does affect the later times and what happens to the Chenery time and what happens to the Winbrook time. So we have to take those times into place, what the standardized high school sleep study says and how they do better, and then also look at it from a fiduciary standpoint of what that does to the budget and what that does to the downstream effects like busing. But I definitely agree that we should go with the national studies and move forward with what's best for the children.
Thank you. Please be brief.
Hi, yes, Ryan Walsh, Precinct 6. So how do you see vocational education fitting into, for lack of a better term, a traditional high school, or in this case, middle and high school combined?
Mr. Pantazopoulos.
I think vocational education is important. I don't know, not all students are going to go into the path of maybe college. Some of them might, so vocational education is something that even with the new high school and the new school being built, we should look to build those programs up, and I think it's very important that those students have those opportunities to go down that road.
Thank you. And Ms. Checkaway?
I think giving our students access to high quality vocational and technical education is very important. I know that our district will be leaving the Minuteman district as of June 2020, and this raises some considerations for what their options are going to be moving forward. And so I think it's really important that the school committee keep a close eye on this, so whether it be students having access to Minuteman or continuing to expand what we can also offer within our district. I think it's important that we make sure that students who are interested in this get the opportunity to have this kind of education.
Thank you. Please.
I think vocational education is extremely important. I think Peter and Amy have said it nicely. I would add that a while back, the school committee, of which I was a member, voted to leave the Minuteman district. For my own part, my vote was because I felt that Belmont would be paying too large a burden of the costs of the new Minuteman school, and also that school at that time was not sized right. It was far too big. The initial plans were huge. Both of those issues have been addressed somewhat in that the payment scheme is different now, and that Belmont would not be spending such a large and undue burden of the new costs of the new building. And the school is now designed for something like 600 students rather than over 1,000. So I would be willing to reconsider my vote on the Minuteman issue.
Thank you. Last very brief question.
Art Kinzinger, Precinct 6. Going back to the thing about the school starting time, I believe Watertown already started that. I was talking to folks over there, and this has a negative impact on the after-school athletics program, even having to turn buses around because the rush hour traffic starts to kick in and you can't make it to meets on time. So what are we going to do about that if we slide late? How are we going to keep the athletics program going? And in addition to that, with the baseball fields are going to go away starting this coming year. What's the resolution for that is during that interim period of time?
I think I heard two questions there. I'll leave it to you to figure out how to deal with that. Ms. Checkaway, would you please start?
So I think the first question was about athletics and coordination across districts. Is that dealing with? Yeah. So I think it's important to learn again from the number of districts right around us who have already started to implement this in terms of what their experiences have been and how they've tackled these kinds of challenges. And I think I would need to sort of learn more about what some of these issues are, but I think this is important to consider. And your other question.
Baseball fields are going away.
Baseball fields are the first thing that gets destroyed in the construction of the new high school, which is great, but what's the resolution for how that's going to be handled next spring?
Yeah, so I think there are starting to be plans in place about how to make sure that our student athletes have access to the facilities and spaces they need, even if they're not right there in terms of transportation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So.
I know that was unfair. Two questions is a lot. Ms. Prestwich, please.
In terms of athletics and school start times, it's tough, I admit, because if schools start later, then they are going to end later. And I don't know what to do about rush hour traffic, but as much as I value athletics, I think that the basic health of our student population takes priority. So that may be something we're stuck with. I don't know. I hope not. I hope the logistics can be solved. In terms of the baseball fields for the next few years, I think the athletics directors are looking at that and certainly at the possibility of using facilities in neighboring towns.
Mr. Pantazopoulos.
I have thought about the new school being built, and we all use the same buses for the students, and what the impact is going to be. If I'm elected, I would have to look at the bus schedule, how many kids are actually enrolled in using the bus, and what the impact is going to be, because I think with construction and with rush hour traffic, it's going to be hard. And as a former student athlete, I do think that we need to see what other fields are available during this construction time and what the impact it's going to be for the students in their well-beings and making it back and forth in time for them to do their activities.
Thank you. And thank you all. So we're going to move into closing statements, and each of you will get a minute, beginning with Andrea Prestwich.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity I've had to serve on the school committee. It has been an honor, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. If re-elected, my top priorities are the new high school, maintaining school funding, and after-school care. I have served on the curriculum, policy, and finance subcommittees, and I'm very familiar with all of the issues currently before the committee. I respectfully suggest that experience is important as we move forward into a time of lean budgets and careful oversight of the new high school. I respectfully ask for your vote on April 2nd and will be very honored to serve another term. Thank you.
Peter Pantazopoulos.
I'm not a politician, I'm not a teacher. What I bring to the table is I have a strong finance and planning background, and I'm a data-driven person. So these issues of special education, where 13% of the budget is used for out-of-district costs, I'd like to look at the numbers, look at, how to bring those numbers in, how to save money for the taxpayers and do the right things for the children. Look at student fees, the busing issue, but I'm able to look at it from a different perspective than a school teacher on the board or someone else. So there aren't many financial people on the school committee board. If you vote for me, I will look at it from a different lens and hope that I can add value for the taxpayers and for the parents of Belmont.
And Amy Checkaway will conclude.
Yes, in closing, I'm really excited again about the opportunity to serve in this important leadership role in our community. I think it's important that we have strong leaders with background in both education, budget management, strategic planning, and a variety of skills who are ready to dig in and engage in multiple issues to make sure that our students who have a variety of needs and experiences are continuing to receive an excellent education. I also, some other priorities are making sure we continue to support our top-notch teachers, that we continue to make sure we have enough staff to help support all of our kids' needs, that we continue to communicate with the community and the diverse range of perspectives and listen to what others are experiencing outside of our meeting rooms, and that we continue to manage our constrained resources carefully. So I'd be honored to serve in this role. It's a big job, and I'm ready to take it on.
And I would like to just ask, will candidates for the Housing Board please come to the stage and sit at the table? And meanwhile, let's give a hand to the school committee candidates. What a well-behaved group you are. Thank you. So let me introduce them as they come up. So we have two candidates for one 5-year member of the Housing Authority Board position. We have Thomasina Ann Olson and Cassandra M. Page. Once again, we used random.org to pick numbers in advance. We'll take care of you. Yes. And I'd like to invite Thomasina Ann Olson to come up and we'll speak from here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Thomasina Olson. I'm running for re-election. Great. To be a member of the Belmont Housing Authority. 3 years ago, I was elected to the board. Since that time, we said goodbye to a former executive director and initiated 2 searches to find a qualified one who has since been on board for a little over a year. We oversaw as a board the emergency maintenance requests, often with only having 1 member of maintenance, while 3 of our 3 maintenance staff, while the other 2 were on approved sick leave. We brought on a new accounting system, actually a new accounting firm that provides better updates and transparency. We updated our online financial systems as recently required by DHCD. We improved tenant collections and maintenance turnaround time. We are updating our personnel policies, and we have initiated the work to add new and improved housing at Sherman Gardens with funding from CPA and the Housing Trust, of which I'm a part. Certainly, we also need to address the aging of our infrastructure. I've been an advocate for seniors through my work on the Council on Aging and the Housing Trust. I also initiated the installation of 4 little libraries at the 3 properties. There's much left to be accomplished. As a people person, I want to encourage a tenant organization that can develop community among the 3 properties and within the community of Belmont. As a financial professional, I understand the importance of the board's fiduciary responsibilities, careful assessment of our budget and personnel policies, and staff oversight. The Belmont Housing Authority is an asset to our community. I believe my qualifications, commitment, and ties to the community are needed as we move forward. Thank you.
And Cassandra Page.
Good evening, everybody. First, I want to thank you for coming out and thank the League of Women's Voters for having me here. They say that it takes a village to raise children. Well, it took a village to get me here. I'm very nervous, but I am very dedicated to this cause. I happen to live in one of the properties that the Belmont Housing Authority owns. As a resident, I have seen a lot of growth and changes, but I've also seen a lot of pain and suffering that has come with that. There's a label that is attached to living in low-income housing. And for those of us who are there, we have a hard time admitting that and trying to be a well-rounded member of society, especially in a town like Belmont. I want to encourage the residents to work with the staff and with the board so that we can make changes and everybody is involved in that decision. I've heard a lot of complaints, and that's what's driving me to be here, is that people are unhappy, but they also don't know how to voice that opinion because they're scared. And I'm here to make sure they don't have to be. I might be nervous here today because I've never done this before, but I do have personal experience. I'm also very dedicated to making sure that anything that I don't know, I learn so that I can better serve this community. Thank you.
So I have a few questions, but we've got one from the audience.
How does the committee,
name,
sorry,
please.
Mark Carthy, Precinct 1. How does the committee interact with the residents? And have residents been on the board before? And if not, why not?
1 minute for either of you, and we'll start here and go there.
My understanding, Mr. Carthy, is that at one time there were residents, and back in 2014, there was a ruling there was an initiative to put residents on the board. That was stalled by the legislature. It's now working its way, and it will probably be an appointment by the Selectmen. We don't know for sure, but that was the initial. Now, you ask how we interact. We do have we have monthly meetings, and they are invited, but I think Cassandra has raised a good point. We need to be a little more transparent in inviting our residents to the meetings, but they're always invited. Maybe they don't know that they should come, and so I think a tenant organization would be really helpful, and as I said, by next year we will have a tenant on the board.
Ms. Page, and can you get the mic? There you go, great.
As far as interactions go with the board, as a resident, I can tell you that I did not know much about the board until I started doing research a few months ago. I knew very little. I didn't realize that the relationship was supposed to be as strong as it was intended. And I believe part of that is because we have been through a lot of changes as a community, and I think that it's also in part because we don't have the availability all the time. A lot of people have children, and I've already made some changes. I have a lot of people interested just since I've stepped up in coming to the board meetings, and I think that's a big step in the right direction. And no, there hasn't been a tenant, to my knowledge, on the board before, but it is something that we are trying to do. But I'm not willing to wait. I'm ready to do it now.
Thank you. Stay with the mic. What are your highest priorities for major maintenance of the Housing Authority units?
My highest priorities for the maintenance would be to take a step back from the external property structures, for the most part. Not in all of the developments as Sherman Gardens. It is absolutely crucial that we get in there and we make sure that they're handicapped accessible, because they are for disabled and elderly residents. As far as the family goes, there is a lot of internal stuff that we need to deal with that are causing concern for residents, for the health of themselves and their children. And we need them to voice that and be involved in those decisions.
Wilson? What's your highest priority for major maintenance?
We have a very aging infrastructure. In 1949, the village was built for returning veterans. We have a lot of work to do. I don't know where to start. I know we're doing roofs now. I know that Ms. Page brought up some issues about mold and draftiness. We are investigating those. I did some investigation on the mold, because that's a very serious concern. I've spoken to the health department. Our executive director has been working with a company. Major maintenance, going back, we're doing windows, we're doing roofs. I don't know that we can get them done very quickly, because we have a capital budget structure that's very limited, but certainly we want to work more with the tenants.
Thank you.
For their thoughts.
Michael McNamara, 41 Marlborough Street, Precinct 7. I was going to ask about affordable housing. I was wondering, I think we need to do more in Belmont for affordable housing. So I was wondering, are we going to be focusing, like, we have several new projects, including the McLean Hospital plot that we were considering working with. And I was wondering if you're sort of working with the Housing Trust and other groups to try to really encourage more affordable housing, because we have so many elderly folks who really want to stay here and are downsizing. My parents are considering downsizing, and we want to stay in the community, but there are also a lot of folks who are young families who can barely afford to stay here, and that's not even considering other aspects. So I just wanted to ask your plans to improve affordable housing.
Ms. Olson?
Michael, I serve on the Housing Trust, and we have made our concerns known about the McLean property. We are very concerned about seniors and about affordable. There's also a mid-range of affordable. You know, not everyone is at 30% of AMI. Some people are a little bit higher.
AMI? AMI. Can you just say?
Average median income.
Thank you.
So I've been working with the other members of the Housing Trust to address that, and specifically we've been going to planning board meetings and talking about our concerns with the planning board and also the developer.
Page?
I'm not 100% sure that I could sit here and tell you that we have a huge input in that, but it is something that is very, very concerning to me, as affordable housing is something that a lot of people need. This is a crisis in all of Massachusetts right now, and affordable housing would allow people to come in at about 80% of the area median, as opposed to paying market rent, which we all know is very expensive. But it is something that if there is any way I could have a say in, I would make sure to do so because it is important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, this next question is long. Just to focus on this. In May 2017, the Housing Authority received town meeting approval to spend $173,000 of CPA funds, CPA, Community Preservation Act, thank you, to do an assessment and redevelopment plan for Sherman Gardens. What is the status of that project, and do you support building additional units for senior citizens at Sherman Gardens? And we'll begin with Ms. Page.
I absolutely support building additional units there, not just for elderly, but for the disabled that are currently living in the family development. Some of them are not one single family, it's multiple family members that might have either a child or a parent that's in a wheelchair and needs accessibility. And the plan for Sherman Gardens is to either potentially redevelop completely or just remodel, but to definitely make sure that it is handicap accessible. And I would love to see them be able to expand so that we can provide more homes for people that need it and more accessibility for the families who are currently using temporary railings and ramps. The veterans and family housing was never designed for that.
Olson.
The 175 that was the Housing Trust asked the CPA for has been, we have an RFP out, we have a consultant who's working on a design. One of the problems at our senior units, both Sherman Gardens and Waverly Oaks, is that they are 2 floors and have no elevators. As people age, they need elevators. So one of our hopes was to have an elevator building over there. And as Ms. Page says, we are considering all aspects of, we have a very large parcel over there, so we may, we're not sure what direction we're going exactly with that. But one thing it needs to be said is that we have at current 850 people on our wait list. And so that just goes to show you we need more people. We need more housing for more people. So I think that's one of our concerns as well.
Thank you. And starting again with Ms. Olson, last question. You're running for a 5-year term. What is your biggest priority that you want to accomplish in the next 5 years?
Biggest, there's a lot of priority. I guess, having just said, this 850 people on our wait list really bothers me. So we either need more housing or we need to find a way to whittle that down. The state recently required that there was a comprehensive list. So we're pulling from other communities as well as our own. So more housing, getting our list down. And then the next thing, and I think I'm grateful to Cassandra for this, is I think we really need to build more community among our 3 properties and also within the town.
Thank you. Ms. Page.
Absolutely. There are a ton of projects that need to be done there, but the biggest thing that I'm concerned with is rebuilding trust and sense of community. It's something that I feel has been lost along the way. And I want residents to become more involved, not only just in the community that they live in currently, but in the town as a whole. And that's got to start at the bottom, and it's got to work its way to the top, whether it's by going to more board meetings, getting more involved in community events through the town. We are one. We're not singled out, and that's how a lot of people have felt, and they need to get on board, start communicating, and then start helping make decisions that they feel are important for the health and safety of themselves and their families.
Thank you. And closing statements will be in reverse order of opening, so we will end with Cassandra Page going first.
I don't have, many years of political background or town serving like my opponent has. I could never take that away from her. She's done a lot for this town, and I commend her greatly for that. However, I have a perspective that no one else on the board has ever had. I've lived this life for 30 years, and I am dedicated and committed to serving not only the residents in the low-income housing, but also serving and giving back to the town that I grew up in and was fortunate enough to be here for, because I would not be able to afford it otherwise. Thank you, guys.
And Ms. Olson.
In closing, I'm running for re-election as member to the Belmont Housing Authority. As a board member, I have been responsive to all concerns that have been brought to me, including the handicap ramp at Sherman Gardens, which was much delayed and is now up. There was a question of whether or not Waverly Oaks could use an elevator, and I researched it with the fire department, the highway department, and also the former director of the Tom Gitsunis, essentially, but it was too cost prohibitive. I will retain my work as an advocate for seniors. I believe that my skills and my qualifications, my financial experience are needed on the board at this time. We've started some things, and we really need to continue them. So I appreciate your vote on April 2nd.
Thank you, and I'd like to invite the candidates for your selectmen to please come to the stage and give a hand to your candidates. So as they are coming to the table, Belmont has 3 candidates for 1 open selectman position this year. Jessica Bennett, Roy Epstein, and Timothy Flood. So once again, we use random.org, pick numbers in advance, and Timothy Flood, then Roy Epstein, and then Jessica Bennett will be the order for your presentations. 2 minutes for your opening remarks, 1 minute for everything else. May I invite Timothy Flood?
Good evening. My name is Timothy Flood. I'm running for selectman to give a neutral perspective in all matters Belmont. I want to hear your opinions and concerns and provide an opportunity to have your voices truly heard. You may have noticed I have not mailed literature with lists of power-based supporters, nor have I solicited contributions. I am here to represent all 25,000 or so residents in this town, even if you disagree with me. I am here on my own merit, not on the merit of others. I understand there are emails circulating attacking my character. As voters, you have to decide what to believe. I know what's true because I have lived it. I would ask you, do you think I would have custody of my daughter if these accusations were true? Do you trust who would spread falsehoods just to gain power? Are those actions of a true leader? This is not Belmont. This is not leadership. I moved to Belmont to provide my daughter the best I could. I want her to thrive in school, to be safe walking on our streets, and have her grow up with a strong sense of community. I believe many of us share these values. We need a leader that will bring us together, overcome our challenges, and create a vision for our future, not to divide us. We need to prepare for our future, not prepare for our future of our past. This vision incorporates shared community, education, family, and inclusion. We need a leader that will be fiscally responsible. We need a leader that will support local businesses. We need a leader that will address traffic. I separate myself as a military veteran and a local small business owner. As selectman, my responsibility will be to represent our entire community equally. I will listen, provide transparency, and most important, take action. Thank you very much.
Roy Epstein.
Good evening, and thank you all. This election is like choosing a CEO for Belmont. That person needs significant experience, good judgment, and excellent knowledge of finance. I go door to door every day to meet as many of you as I can to prove my fitness for our most important elected office. You might know me already from my leadership in many town committees and also for making not too graceful speeches at town meeting. Luckily, that's okay for voters like Ralph from Walnut Street, who stopped his car one day when I was canvassing and yelled out the window, "Hey, I know you from those meetings on TV. I hope you win." I went to college at Wesleyan and received my PhD in economics from Yale. My dad never went to college because of World War II. Until the day he died, he thought I went to Wellesley. My wife Joanna and I met at Yale. We found jobs in Chicago, and our 2 sons were born there. We moved here because Joanna received an offer from Harvard. We lived at 34 Cushing Avenue since 1994. I work as an economic consultant in complex financial cases. In addition, I'm an adjunct professor of finance at Boston College. As chair of the Warrant Committee and member of many other town committees for more than 10 years, I've devoted hundreds of hours to critical town building projects and other issues. Why? Because the committees are the little democracies where progress actually gets started in Belmont. It means nonstop public input, practical thinking, and making hard decisions. That's vital preparation for being a good selectman. It's key for achieving a new library, a new hockey rink, and building the community path. I believe I have the experience that counts to serve as your selectman. That's why I'm here, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Jessica Bennett.
Thank you all for coming out tonight, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this very important event every year. My family and I have lived in town for 12 years. I also moved to town because my wife got a job at Harvard. We live here with our 2 children, one who's at Burbank and one who's at Chenery. And we love the town, and the town has been very good to us. This is an open seat on our board. Any one of us would be a newcomer, and every selectman, current and former, who I have spoken with, all say that nothing really prepares you for the role. Not serving on committees, not being on town meeting, not running a business. We would all be learning on the job. So we should ask ourselves, what is missing on the current board? What perspectives are not represented? We have a selectman who's a lawyer with warrant committee experience. We have a selectman who is a business executive with school committee experience. We do not have a select woman with my combination of skills and experience. My professional background spans banking, marketing, and communications. This means that I have the financial skills to manage our budget, but I also have the communication skills to help explain it to our residents. I serve on town meeting and multiple town committees, and I'm a respected leader in our school community. And as an advocate, I've helped get town policies changed to bring in new grant revenue through the Complete Streets and Safe Routes to Schools funding programs. I'm running to be your next select woman to solve problems. How do we help the town be more responsive to the needs of its citizens? How can we make progress on our climate goals and housing challenges? How can we inspire the next generation of leaders, including our young women? I am a leader who knows that we can do more together than any one of us can do on their own. I work through collaboration. I know that teams of smart people working together can change policy and improve lives. As your select woman, I will work for you and with you, and I ask for your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Okay, with that much energy, I expect to hear some questions from the audience. Here they come. So that'll be 1 minute response time. And okay, so seeing all these questions, I want to not only invite you to be as brief and succinct as you possibly can, but also you, so that we can get more answers. Okay, please begin.
Hi, Larry Lang, Precinct 1. I want to pick up with the Housing Trust. Could you each explain your views on senior housing, how we can expand it given the recent proposal that was, I guess, tabled for the McLean property? What are the specific steps you'll use?
Mr. Epstein.
Well, I understand the planning board is in negotiations with McLean, and that is very much in flux right now. Fortunately, we have a very qualified planning board, but it's a negotiation because the prior deal is really off the table of a continuing care facility. The developer has made a proposal which is really unacceptable, and the planning board rightly rejected it. So they really have to negotiate this. I think long term, there'll be some senior housing and affordable housing at McLean. I think the larger potential really in Belmont is for South Pleasant Street. I believe there will be a significant development along South Pleasant Street and other areas in Belmont where there will be a significant addition to the affordable housing stock in the future.
Jessica Bennett.
Hi, thanks for your question. I think that it's one of the big challenges of our time in Belmont to find affordable housing options for seniors, and not just the affordable ones, but like Tommy was talking about, the mid-range ones, the housing that people can downsize to. The McLean proposal was completely out of line with what people in town need. My own mother lives in a housing development in Connecticut that is a 55 and up active adult community, which she moved into because she has Parkinson's disease. And after she was diagnosed, she needed a house that was all on one level and that provided handicapped accessibility. And that's what she got at an affordable price point in a place that she enjoys living. We could do that for our seniors here in Belmont. I do have high hopes for the new zoning that's happened on South Pleasant Street as well, but I also think that McLean's development has to be put together in cooperation with our Housing Trust and with our Council on Aging.
Timothy Flood.
So as it's already been stated, the project at McLean was a complete mess. And my concern is that we're spending a lot of time talking about South Pleasant Street, which isn't even really on the table. So I think we need to put a lot of pressure on McLean to make sure that we're bringing in what we need. And that conversation needs to be had, and we need to have our seniors at that table as well.
Thank you.
Hi, Sandy McKinley, 201 Oakley Road. My question is, the introduction of the new trash and recycling program was very messy, pardon the pun. And many of our citizens and many of our seniors are still experiencing issues. So my question for the candidates are, what would you have done differently? And what would you do moving forward to address this issue? Thank you.
Mr. Flood.
Well, the trash is an issue. It's been brought up multiple times through the senior community. As it stands right now, the project is already in place, so we can't turn back time. But I think we need to step up maybe a separate truck to address the particular seniors that need that help, at least temporarily, until we can formulate a long-term plan.
Mr. Epstein.
The new program was put into place last summer. I think we're still learning. We're getting a lot of information about the different problems people have, and adjustments will have to be made. I met a woman when I was going door to door whose even the smaller trash can blew off the porch from the wind. She was 85 years old and was not strong enough to bring the can back to her porch. So it's clear that there are a number of issues that have to be addressed, and I'm convinced that if we all get together, we will find solutions in short order. Thank you.
Ms. Bennett.
I think that we need to be addressing this issue. We should have addressed this issue much more quickly. I think that there were many people for whom dragging these gigantic trash cans was just not an option. When you're a tiny elderly person with mobility issues, putting one of those trash cans to the road is a significant obstacle. And these people are in town, they're paying taxes, they deserve to have their trash taken away. This is a service that the town provides. So I think that our DPW and our Council on Aging should work together to find solutions that work for people who have mobility issues, not just seniors, who have issues dealing with this dealing with these oversized cans. And I am encouraged by the good nature of many neighbors reaching out to help people with the issues that they have, or neighbors sharing barrels and everything, but we can't look to that as a way to solve our problems. Our neighbors can do good things for us, but that's not the solution that comes from the town.
Over here.
I'm Deborah Talanian, Precinct 1. The chairman of the Board of Selectmen was forced last year to recuse himself on matters concerning the new high school building due to the proximity of his home to the site. The opinion from the State Ethics Commission is that traffic considerations could negatively impact his property values and thus prejudice his decisions as selectman. Do any of you live on a street that abuts or is proximate to the new high school and thus could force you to recuse yourself by the same ruling that has affected Adam Dash's right to participate in discussions and voting pertaining to the largest building project in the history of the town?
So I'm going to expand that. Could any of you see any reason why you might need to recuse yourself from the many issues that selectmen have to face? Ms. Bennett.
Well, I think that there are probably, any number of issues that people could be asked to recuse themselves from as a member of the Board of Selectmen. And if recusals are, interfere with the ability for the selectmen to do their work, then they can be looked at. I live on a street that is close to the high school, as you know, Ms. Talanian. I was not considered in a butter with any of the materials that were sent out to abutters with regard to the high school. So I think that I would possibly not be considered in a butter if the town hasn't thought that yet. I have obviously been very concerned and involved with addressing the issues of traffic, both in your neighborhood and in mine, as an activist who is concerned with the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists and with moving traffic through in efficient ways. I am very concerned with making sure that we all move forward together and make good decisions that are good for the town as a whole.
Mr. Epstein.
Madam Moderator, the answer to your question for me is no.
Wow. Mr. Flood.
To start, no, I do not live near it, but I will bring up the fact that if we had a 5-person board, we wouldn't be in that position.
Okay. Moving forward in brevity, for the questioners, if you've already asked a question once, I ask that you let others who have not yet asked a question go first. And over here.
Yes, my name is Mary Lewis. I live in Precinct 1. My question is the following. What should the town do to ensure that the education of our children tomorrow is at least as good as it is today?
An education question for the selectmen?
Yes, because the selectmen are involved in making decisions about potential overrides, and therefore this question is relevant to the selectmen. Thank you.
Ms. Bennett.
Yes, I have been very involved in the schools from the time my children first entered. I am a dedicated member of the community on this issue. I worked on the override campaign in 2015, because I understood the dire situation that we were facing in our schools, in addition to the other problems we had in town, such as terrible roads and nasty sidewalks. But, and I also worked tirelessly over the last year to ensure that we built the 7 to 12 school, that we had the resounding 76% approval vote to pass that debt exclusion. I believe that the educational system in Belmont is the crown, in Belmont is the crown jewel of our town, and that children going forward need to have the facilities and the teachers in place to serve their needs.
Mr. Epstein.
Let me first affirm my support for public education. We all are very proud of the Belmont schools, and it's a principal reason for most of us, I believe, for moving to this town and liking to raise our children here. The schools are expensive, other town services are expensive, and I imagine that to preserve the quality of the schools and the town, an override will be necessary in the not-too-distant future. The challenge for the Board of Selectmen and the school superintendent is finding a way to make that override as small as possible. And to do that, we're going to have to be extremely resourceful in going through the school budget, going through the town budget, rethinking how we deliver services, finding efficiencies, and doing this to put the absolute minimum additional burden on our taxpayers. That's the challenge before us.
Mr. Flood.
To be brief, we need to fund the need. Right now, we are effectively about 20 million unfunding as compared to the state average. That's concerning to me. You know, we are going to have an override. There's no question about that. You know, I think we need to maximize the effects of that override moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Judith Ananian Sarno, Precinct 3. Recently, the Board of Selectmen began discussing changing the position of the town treasurer from an elected position, which it currently is, and to an appointed by a 3-member board position. And I'm wondering if you could comment on your, no pun intended, your position on that. Thank you.
Ms. Bennett.
I think we have an excellent town treasurer right now. I just want to give a shout out to Floyd Carmen. He's done a tremendous job with maintaining our, helping to get us the best possible interest rates with our AAA rating. And I think that there are strong arguments for moving to an appointed position. But I think what we need to do is we need to study it. We need to look at what our surrounding towns, our peer towns are doing, and see what kind of effect it has on the perceived quality of the performance in the job.
Mr. Epstein?
I don't think there's any need to study this question. I have direct experience working on the on the DPW and police station projects where the financing was quite challenging. And I have to tell you that there were strong differences of opinion between the treasurer at certain points, the town administrator, and the building committee. The perspective of the treasurer was indispensable, and the independence of that view, knowing that he didn't answer to the town administrator or anybody else, was critical for getting extremely good guidance. Most of the time, maybe it doesn't seem to make much difference whether the treasurer is appointed or not, but I can tell you that this was an instance where the independence of the treasurer was fundamentally important. I would trust the elected process. If we have a bad appointment, we can terminate that person if it was appointed, but I think it's more important to trust the electorate for an elected treasurer. If it doesn't work out, there's always another election and the system corrects itself.
Excuse me, hold off. Mr. Flood.
I happen to agree. I believe in our election process, and I would leave it as is.
Thank you.
Suzanne Croy, Precinct 6. Town meeting is an ideal place to acquire knowledge and understanding about how our town government works by listening to presentations and reports as well as fellow members' opinions. Can you first state the number of years you've been a town meeting member and give an example of something you've contributed at town meeting in some role that exemplifies your experience in adding to the discussion? Thank you.
Mr. Epstein.
I was first elected to town meeting in 2003. There was a bit of a gap. I'm not sure when I re-entered town meeting. It was maybe around 2009 or 10, I'm not sure. Some of you in this room, I imagine, remember the presentation I gave on the Minuteman question, which was, I said at the time, was the most difficult question I had encountered on the Warrant Committee and in explaining something to town meeting. I think that report was very important for guiding town meeting to what I believe was the correct decision, which was to withdraw from the Minuteman district. Otherwise, I can tell you every year an issue comes up, whether it's the high school debt exclusion or our pension obligations. That is the nature of the Warrant Committee, to advise town meeting on every financial question that comes before town meeting.
Mr. Flood?
So I have not been on town meeting, and I know everyone's aware of that. But I'll say I don't need to have been on town meeting to hear the concerns of the community. Everyone's speaking about it out on the street. And I think it's almost more important to be receiving that information from there and then bringing it forward.
Ms. Bennett?
Hi, I've been on town meeting for 1 year. I was, prior to that, taking care of pretty small children. It was kind of hard for me to run for town meeting when I was at home, taking care of my kids or running around doing PTA stuff. I agree with Mr. Flood that there are many ways that you can gain experience in town, and it's only the electorate that gets to decide what experience counts. So I want to make sure that people know that I am here to lead from the community. I am not here as a candidate who represents a certain type of, a certain segment that you're supposed to go through, like of roles that you're supposed to fill in town. I'm here and running because I have been a leader in the community, and I see a big gap between what goes on in the committee rooms and what people are talking about in the community and what people care about. I want to bridge that gap and make everybody feel part of the process.
Thank you. And can we have a question from this side?
Hi, I'm Klaus Becker, town meeting member, precinct 5, and I have a question about transparency. Many of you in this room will remember that around budget time, I complained that we are not getting enough information from the Warrant Committee to evaluate line items like $13 million for public safety. Specifically, I would very much like to see a benchmark to other towns, such as how many policemen per inhabitant and such. My concern is that nobody's going to vote in here against public safety. So when we don't get information to evaluate, we instinctively vote yes, which means that the Warrant Committee turns from the little democracy to the little dictatorship, because it's their opinion that just gets railroaded through. So the question is, will you as a candidate, will you support that we should benchmark the major line items in the budget against surrounding towns? Thank you.
Mr. Flood?
So in theory, I do agree with that. We are slightly different than some of the surrounding communities, so we do have to look at ourselves individually as well as make that comparison, but it's not an apples for apples comparison.
Ms. Bennett?
I think that it can happen all too often in town that we think about the way that we've done it in town. Like, how does Belmont do this? How have we done it over the years? And I think that there are things that we've done in town where if we looked at the benchmarks compared to other towns, we'd be doing pretty well, because we have cut things pretty close to the bone in most of our departments. So I think that it would be a good exercise for the town as a whole, and would help educate the voters on what our real needs are if we were looking at how we compare to our neighboring towns.
Mr. Epstein?
I have to say that's the first time I've heard the Warrant Committee referred to as a dictatorship. But all of our meetings are public, by the way, and there is no lack of effort by the Warrant Committee and every other town body I'm aware of to convey as much information as possible. The specific question about comparison to other towns, that is something we have tried. It turns out to be extremely difficult. We actually prepared a draft of the Warrant Committee Public Safety Report last year that did that undertook that exact task, looking at both the police and the fire department. We had a lengthy discussion with both the police chief and the fire chief, and the complexity of making informative comparisons town to town were so daunting that we decided to postpone it to this year, if possible, to try to do something that town meeting would find informative and useful and not merely misleading and superficial.
This side.
Anne Marie Mahoney, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1, and self-described Queen of Capital. However, the Capital Budget Committee is not a monarchy. We presently have 3 major capital projects that are up and running. The high school project, the DPW and police project, and the library. Can you identify other potential capital projects that are coming down the road and suggest a long-term capital strategy for addressing them?
Ms. Bennett.
So I know that we have the rink project has been in, people have been discussing it a lot, and there are many hockey families in town who are very concerned about what will happen when that rink is no longer usable. Also the library. But, there are other things that we have coming down the road too. We'll have to, do work on the town hall building. We'll have to do work on any number of the schools. Burbank is definitely due for another renovation in a few years down the road. So we're going to have to look at what our servicing capacity is within our budget. We're really fortunate. We've retired some of the budget that, or not retired, but we pushed back some of the borrowing capacity from the Wellington because we came in under budget for that. So that opens up a little bit more for us in terms of what we can borrow. But it's, we have to look for some community partnerships to help us with the bigger projects, and we need to be looking for the grant dollars we can get anywhere we can.
Mr. Flood.
So we have a lot of projects that a lot of groups want to have happen. And as a town, everyone wants all these projects to happen at the same time. It's not realistic. And the reality is, some of these projects are going to have to be held off for some time until we finish what we're doing. We're spending too much money. We need to finish the current projects and then look forward.
Mr. Epstein.
So you've heard a little bit of what I heard as disparagement, at least, of committee work, but I can tell you that in the DPW and police station work, which I know quite intimately, we had committee work that was public meetings. It was an enormous amount of work precisely because it's so difficult to come up with a plan that is effective and affordable at the same time. It took 2 years to come up with a workable strategy for DPW and police, and it's going to go out to bid, or I believe it's going out today actually, for $10 million when it was originally thought to be $50 million. That kind of success is precisely because people do put in the time in committees, analyze, discuss, get input, and really knock their brains out to try to find the best way to do the job for the whole town. Anne Marie mentioned the library. The library is not a done deal yet. It's barely a design. The Board of Selectmen has an obligation to promote that project as best it can. The same for the hockey rink. There's great...
You can finish your sentence. Okay.
I'm sure this will be continued.
Yes, hello. My name's Jim Williams. I live in Precinct 1. Certain pundits are rumoring around town that one of you is running as someone else's representative, and that another one of you is running for election as a part of a scheme to just influence the outcome of the election instead of trying to win. So I don't think any of this is true, but I'd like to ask you to confirm that you decided to run for office on your own volition and share with us what motivated you to do that.
So, did you run on your own, and what was your motivation? Is that right?
Run on your own volition, which means you're doing it on your own volition. And,
Thank you.
As a part of your own will, yes, instead of another scheme.
Mr. Flood.
I think my opening statement covered a lot of that question. The answer is yes, I ran on my own. I'm still running on my own. As I said in my opening statement, I don't have a group behind me supporting me with names. That seems to be important to a lot of people. Let me correct that. It seems to be important to a small group of people, but I think we're missing the point that there's 25,000 people that need to be represented in this town. That's why I'm here.
Ms. Bennett?
So I decided to run after working on the 7 to 12 school campaign most of last year. I, through that campaign, engaged with hundreds of people in town on the issues that really matter to us. I worked my butt off on that campaign, and I worked my butt off on that campaign with some amazing people who gave their time to work on my campaign as well. We've done tremendous work together over the last few years, trying to make sure that Belmont is moving in a direction that serves the entire community. At the end, when I approached one of my campaign managers about the fact that I was thinking about running, she said, "Oh my God, I can't work on another campaign right now." But when we talked more and more, we realized that what we were missing in town was a voice that comes from that community. So I decided that it was important to run.
Thank you. I'm going to make an arbitrary decision here, seeing how many people are left and what our time frame is. Oops.
One more, yeah.
I'm premature. I'm ahead of us. Thank you.
I honestly don't know what's lurking behind Mr. Williams' question, but I can only say that in December, I was hoping Mark Paolillo would run for another term. And when he chose not to, I thought that I could do the best job in his place, and that's why I decided to run.
Thank you.
So I will say that the candidates are already doing what I'm about to ask you to do. Just trying to honor the number of questions in the room. Can you do 30 seconds max? Do you think you
Give it a try.
could try that for answers? Because there are a lot of questions. Let's start over here, and as brief as you can so we can get as many in as possible.
Phil Thayer, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. As a member of the Select Board, how would you go about persuading the other two to do what you want?
Here.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
As a member of the Select Board, how would you go about persuading the other two to do what you want?
Every committee is a discussion, and people exchange ideas. They get input from the public. That's how any group comes to a decision. The best idea prevails, we hope. Eventually, you have to end your discussion and take a vote. That's all you can do.
Ms. Bennett.
When I am working in groups where we have disagreements, I try to find consensus. I think that it is important for us to all hear each other and to find the points where we are agreeing, and then to keep working towards more agreement and more agreement. Now, you can come in and say, "I'm right. I have the best idea in the room, and I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to keep asserting that." Or you can come into a meeting and say, "All right, this is what I really believe, but I know that there are other people in this room who might believe something else, and I want to know why."
Mr. Flood?
I'm not here to persuade anyone. I'm here to represent the community, and at the same time, I want to understand everyone's viewpoints. If I can understand everyone's viewpoints, I think we're properly representing the community.
Thank you.
Vera Scanarian, Town Meeting, Precinct 3.
Can you step up a little bit? Thank you.
What is the one thing that would help the town reach its climate goals?
Climate goals.
Me? Okay. Well, I think that the town really needs to take a concerted effort to find more grant funding to help us meet our goals. And I think one thing that we can do is take a cue from other communities like Winchester and Stoneham and Waltham, and hire a part-time energy manager who can help us identify grants, apply for them, and bring the money here. They would be paid for out of the money that they bring into town, So there's nothing to lose by doing this. And the one who's been working in Winchester had brought $250,000 in for the town last year and only brought home about 28 of that for herself.
Mr. Flood.
Quite frankly, I couldn't say it any better.
Succinct. Mr. Epstein.
Well, there are several big things one could do. For example, Belmont Light, by shifting its power procurement to greener sources, will have a large impact. And that is something that Belmont Light is working towards quite successfully, I think. I think there'll be a transition to electric vehicles. I agree with the Energy Committee's work advocating heat pumps, home insulation, and I believe, bottom line, we will meet our energy efficiency goals by 2050.
Paul Roberts, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. First of all, thanks to all three of you for standing and running and giving voters a choice. I think it's a good thing for our town and for democracy. My question is, one of the most contentious issues facing the Board of Selectmen in the last 5 years was the controversy over the Belmont Town Green, in which the Board of Selectmen came before town meeting with a design that was described as 90 or 95% complete, obtained funding for that design, and then with no notice to town meeting, unilaterally changed that design. We had a special town meeting in which a majority of the town meeting requested the Board of Selectmen to adhere to the original design. Roy, you voted against that resolution at the special town meeting.
Can you please give us one
Jesse,
question?
So,
one question.
yep, I was just trying to frame the question, people. Just want
Just
everyone to
the
understand the
question.
context, because not everyone was here then, okay? My question to the three candidates is, could you explain your position on the town green controversy, and how would you work as a selectman to foster trust between the selectmen and the voters, and the selectmen and town meeting, that what
Thank
you
you.
bring before them is what you're
Thank
going
you.
to do?
Mr. Flood.
Town meeting is supposed to represent the community. They made a vote. That's what would have went forward. That's it.
Mr. Epstein.
I think we all recognize that the Board of Selectmen made an ill-advised decision. I think we're all smarter as a result of that, and the Board of Selectmen, I believe, has taken a lesson from that. I mean, we are three volunteers, basically, doing the best we can. I think in the end, the outcome of the town green was okay, and but everybody is just wiser for that experience.
Ms. Flood.
Ms. Bennett?
I'm sorry. Getting tired.
That's
Sorry.
okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's a long night. Town meeting voted on what they thought was a project, and the Board of Selectmen let themselves be swayed into thinking that they had the authority to change it. They were concerned with, meeting the needs of certain residents who spoke up, and it was a squeaky wheel situation, and the Board of Selectmen cannot overrule town meeting in that way. It's 100% not okay.
Thank you.
Peter Dorfman, Bellevue Road, Precinct 6. Our town has many issues, but as I've told a few of our poor town meeting members tonight, I'm here as a single issue voter. I strongly support the decision to build the new school.
Can
but I
you
think
summarize, please?
it's now time for us to address the road problem. Our roads are another major legacy that we will leave to our children, and they are also a big impact on our current quality of life. So in my opinion, it's now time for us to take seriously that problem before it overwhelms us. What is your plan to address this problem?
Mr. Epstein, roads.
I think the roads are in a crisis situation. That's not a secret in Belmont. My view, my mother's father was in the paving business in Philadelphia, so I'm actually acutely aware of the conditions of our roads. I hope that Belmont as a town will come together and agree that this should be a top priority. It will require assessing how we deploy our funds. If there's a future override, how much of that override should be directed to increasing our paving budget, but the town has to commit itself to doing this.
That would be Ms. Bennett next.
I'm not only committed to us having better roads in town, I'm very committed to having those roads serve all users. I think we have not paid attention to the needs of pedestrians and bicyclists on our roads. And while it is important that we repave and that we save all of our, tires and shocks and struts, it is also appalling to me the condition of the sidewalks in town and our terrible infrastructure that we have for keeping our walkers and our bicyclists safe.
Thank you. Mr. Flood.
We have a long road ahead when it comes to fixing these roads. We do have a new program in place that is starting to address the roads and the sidewalks continuously. Beyond that, we're just going to have to wait and see, and that's not a good answer. I know that, but at least we're inching forward.
Thank you.
Michelle Mother, Woodfall Road, and I'm in Precinct 2. And my question is similar. It's also about the roads. So in our neighborhood, we've made a push to repave some of the roads, and we've talked with the town, and they've said they won't do anything unless 100% of the people on private roads agree. And this is a very high hurdle to get over. And on our road,
Your question?
Okay. On our road, we've gotten 70% of the people to agree to make the road public, and the road
question
pave it. So my question to you is, what would you do to improve the process for making a private road public and also repaving?
I know that the conditions of the roads up there are horrendous, and I feel the pain of the residents who want to fix it and who are stymied by the residents who don't want to make it a public road. Unfortunately, we're hamstrung by the process. If you want to make a private road public, not only does it have to be 100%, but it's expected to be brought up to a certain level before the town is going to take it over. At this point, the town is spending so much money patching potholes, though. We really need to find a way forward for you.
So as it was already noted, our hands are really tied when it comes to that. Until that road gets together and gets to that 100%, I don't think there is anything we can do.
Okay, thank you. I keep trying to shorten it. I'm so sorry. Go, please.
As I understand it, private ways were not accepted because they didn't meet standards at the time, even when they were built. So now we have a situation where they're terribly deteriorated, and I believe there are some significant legal obstacles for the town doing what this resident would like to see, but I'm happy to re-examine that question.
And I hate to do this, but this is going to be the last question, just honoring our time frame.
Emily Peterson, Precinct 1.
Oh, well, maybe we'll stay a little long, but we have to get out of school, We've got folks cleaning up.
Okay, we've heard a lot
try.
tonight about funds being in short supply. My question is a simple one, and I'm wondering if, with many of the older trees that have fallen in recent storms, do you feel that allocation of funds for maintaining green space as well as our tree canopy should be a priority as both a means to combat climate change as well as maintain the beauty of our town?
Got that? Okay, let's start. Mr. Flood.
So I think you're asking if we're maintaining the trees properly.
Yeah, I just don't. I think I've heard that there's not enough funds to replace the fallen trees. So wondering if you guys would support
the only
upping
thing
that.
The only thing that I'll note on the trees is I know that there's been an issue with the storms this year. They're already over budget for just cleaning up all the trees that have come down. So we definitely have a lot of work in progress to be able to move that forward.
I love trees, I spoke in town meeting a couple of years ago that it was shameful that we only had a $10,000 tree budget for the whole town. So I would like to make every effort to replace trees, that they come down, whether because of storm, disease, or other reasons.
Yeah, this is a growing problem in town. Another terrible pun. Okay, so but there are lots of Norway maples around town that are reaching the end of their lives, and they're choked by the sidewalks. So we're just going to see this more and more. We have to put a concerted effort into maintaining the character of our town. Tree-lined streets also slow down motorists and create a safer environment for pedestrians to be walking. So I think that we have to look at it as both a character and a safety issue.
Thank you. And by popular acclaim, our last question.
Ann Covino, Goldenberg, Precinct 2. I have a question related to the Council on Aging and their need for a full-time social worker. 2 weeks ago, the League and the Council on Aging co-sponsored a forum on the subject. And involved also were the police department and the fire department. They get so many needs for social services of people that they work together with the Council on Aging. So the push is for a full-time social worker to deal with this population. The seniors, the number are growing in this town, and the needs are very serious. What is your position on a full-time social worker? Have you had time to consider it?
Mr. Epstein.
I have to say, going door to door, I have been startled by the condition of some of the seniors I've met. They need social workers. At the same time, other town departments say they need additional staffing, the school needs additional staffing, and the town is constrained. This is a hard choice, but I believe the need for a social worker is very clear, and it's going to have to be worked out, possibly by cutting back some other program, unless there's other funding can be found, but the social need is very real.
Thank you. Ms. Bennett.
I have kids in the schools, and I believe that a full-time social worker is important enough that I think that we could make the trade-off. If we need to make a trade-off with one school position in order to take care of our seniors in town, then I do think that that's incredibly important. I know from interactions myself about neighbors with the police department that we're spending a lot of money for our first responders to handle things that could be maybe avoided by having a full-time social worker on staff. So I am in full support of us having a full-time social worker for the Council on Aging.
Mr. Flood.
I'm also in full support of the social worker. I think in the meantime, we might be able to put a non-reporting group together, a group of volunteers to maybe help support that role in the meantime. We don't have the funding for it currently. If we implement a volunteer group that can go around and check in with the seniors, I think that'll fill some of that void currently.
Thank you. All right, we've got closing statements. Everybody gets 1 minute for your closing statements, beginning with Jessica Bennett.
This has been a great discussion. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for doing this incredible work in town, and please volunteer, join the League of Women Voters and help make this happen. So I want to get serious about solving a lot of problems in town, but in order to do that, we need to be creative and resourceful. We need to seek out new sources of revenue and look for the talents of Belmont citizens to help us to find ways forward. I've spoken with thousands of Belmont residents about budgets, schools, trash, sidewalks, and I've truly listened to their concerns. I've served on community boards and town committees for 8 years. In meetings and online, door-to-door, and on playgrounds, I have learned about what matters to you. And I know how to lead our town to address these issues. I'm Jessie Bennett, and I ask for your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
And second, Timothy Flood.
As selectman, I will thoughtfully and collaboratively represent our community. I will be the voice for all community members that has been missing for many years. As a local business owner, I will utilize my years of experience to establish business-friendly town policies, to increase community support and strengthen our tax base. Utilizing my military and law enforcement experience, I will work tirelessly to implement new solutions to address traffic congestion and improve safety, such as adding four-way stops at every intersection surrounding our schools. I will do this through open discussion without negativity. I will listen and work to understand various opinions. I will welcome all input. Every person in our community matters, just as each vote matters. I ask you to keep an open mind, continue dialogue, and demand complete transparency from your leadership.
Roy Epstein.
To all of you here and to those watching at home, good government doesn't just happen. It comes from experience and hard work. You have to listen to everybody. I've demonstrated real achievement. For years, we thought the police and DPW work would cost $10 million. We're doing it for 10. The town budget is more than $120 million. That's a huge responsibility. From knocking on your doors, I know you're worried about overrides and maintaining school and town services. The hockey rink and library are top priorities. Belmont faces a fiscal crisis. I'm the only candidate with the right experience for these challenges. In closing, education counts. Independence counts. Experience really counts. Selectmen should be your last job in town government, not your first. If you agree, I'm Roy Epstein, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
And I would like to say thank you to all of the candidates for your willingness to run and to serve the town of Belmont. And thank you all for coming out and participating tonight.
And thanks to Patty Muldoon for being the moderator.
I had no clue who was who.
That's good.
Hard time counting. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.